What if I told you that most families miss the moment that matters most? Not because they don't care, but because the signs, those quiet, almost invisible warnings, don't scream. They whisper. And when they finally become obvious, it's usually when time has already slipped away. We live in a world obsessed with fighting age, ignoring frailty, and pretending we have forever. But the truth? Sometimes forever ends in a slow, silent fade. And those who pay attention, they get a gift most people never receive. The chance to prepare, to connect deeply, to say what matters while it still can be said. This video isn't about fear, it's about awareness. It's about knowing the signs no one talks about but everyone eventually faces. So lean in, because what you're about to hear may change the way you see your loved ones, and time itself. If messages like this matter to you, even a little, consider subscribing. We're on a journey to reach 1,000 subscribers, and every single one brings us closer to helping more families recognize the signs that truly matter. You ever notice how sometimes we dismiss the little things? Like when Mr. Albert, the jolly neighbor who always asked for a second helping at dinner, suddenly starts pushing his plate away. "Just not that hungry," he says with a shrug. You figure maybe he's cutting back, watching his sugar or something. But weeks go by and that round belly he once chuckled about, it's fading. His clothes hang looser, his belts buckle tighter. What nobody tells you, at least not until it's too late, is that this isn't just about appetite. It's the body whispering something far more serious, a warning few know how to read. And Albert? He didn't even realize the weight was dropping, but his body had already begun. Months later, after tests and tears, the doctor said, her body's not processing nutrients anymore. Clara's daughter told me, "We missed it, we thought she was fine. She even looked good, slimmer." That's the thing. Weight loss doesn't always scream danger. Sometimes it tiptoes in like a thief in the night, and by the time you realize what's gone, it's not just pounds, it's vitality, it's resilience, it's time. And here's the real kicker. People try to fix it with protein shakes, comfort food, or grandma's favorite pie. But the issue isn't the menu, it's the message. The body's slowly turning the dial down, saying, "Let's start wrapping things up." Of course, nobody wants to hear that. So we ignore the signs, offer bigger portions, and hope for the best. But the truth? The weight loss is often the first pebble in an avalanche. And once that pebble rolls, it rarely stops. Which brings me to something just as easy to overlook, yet even more telling. Let me tell you about Mr. Carlos. A retired teacher, loved gardening, always the first to wake up and stretch under the sunrise. But one morning, he just stayed in bed, said he was a little tired. Fair enough, right? Happens to the best of us. But then it became routine. The man who once trimmed every hedge with pride now found walking to the kitchen a chore. His wife said, "He naps all day. He's not lazy, just done." And that's the thing. Fatigue at this stage isn't solved with a good night's sleep. It's like the energy switch is being slowly turned off, one click at a time. You know, people often think exhaustion means someone's just not trying hard enough. "Come on, Dad, let's go for a walk," they say, thinking a bit of fresh air will snap him out of it. But the body's not playing by those rules anymore. Organs are downshifting, the heart's not pumping like it used to, blood's not moving fast enough, and muscles, they're running on fumes. I once heard a nurse say, "They're not tired, they're transitioning." Powerful, right? Because that kind of tired doesn't go away, it deepens. Every breath, every step becomes a conscious effort, and that's when the frustration creeps in. And let's not forget the emotional toll. This kind of fatigue steals more than strength. It takes identity. Imagine being the woman who raised 4 kids, ran a household, and now needs help tying her shoes. Pride starts to hurt. Independence fades. And then comes the withdrawal, skipping meals, avoiding company, refusing help even when it's clear they need it. Not because they don't care, but because deep down, they know. They feel it. Their body is speaking louder than ever, and what it's saying isn't easy to accept. But fatigue isn't the only silent shift happening. Another, even more subtle signal is just around the corner. Mrs. Eliza used to run book clubs out of her living room, sharp as a tack, quick with a joke, and always remembering everyone's birthday. But lately she's been asking, "What day is it again?" More often than not. Her daughter chuckled the first few times. Mom's just a bit forgetful." But then Eliza started mixing up names, losing track of time mid-conversation. "Wait a minute. We're working toward our first 1,000 subscribers, and your support means everything. If this message is resonating with you, take a second to hit subscribe. It's a small click, but it helps us reach those who need it most." Even getting confused in her own kitchen. It's jarring, seeing someone so grounded suddenly drift in and out of reality. And it's not dementia, at least not in the way people think. It's the brain, like the rest of the body, receiving less oxygen, less energy, less everything. You'd think memory loss would be loud, but it often sneaks in quiet-like. It starts with hesitation, pausing before answering, scanning faces like they're strangers, nodding along to hide confusion. It's painful to watch. Their spirit is still in there, but the connection flickers. And it's not just about memory. Emotions fade too. They stop reacting to things they once cared about. Birthdays pass unnoticed. Grandkids stop getting calls. It's not neglect, it's the brain going into conservation mode, like a fading candle, still glowing but fainter with each hour. And you want to shout, "Wake up, come back." But they're not gone. They're just slowly letting go. And that's where the emotional withdrawal sets in. Not because they're cold or unloving, but because socializing becomes exhausting. Loud rooms overwhelm them. Conversations feel like puzzles. So they retreat, not out of rudeness, but necessity. I remember one woman saying, "It's like I'm still here, but behind a glass wall." Her son cried hearing that. We all want to keep them connected, but sometimes what they need most is calm, familiar silence. And if you're seeing this in someone you love, don't brush it off. Because something even more visible, yet often misunderstood, is about to surface next. There was this gentleman, Harold, who once boasted he hadn't had a cold in 10 years. Strong as an ox, he'd grin, tapping his chest. But then, over just a few months, the story changed. First it was a cough that wouldn't quit. Then a small cut on his arm that didn't heal right. Next thing his daughter knew, Harold was in and out of urgent care for one infection after another. UTIs, pneumonia, oral infections. It all started piling up. "It's just bad luck," someone said. But no, it wasn't luck. It was the body saying, "I'm losing the strength to fight." See, the immune system, that invisible army we count on, starts retiring early when the body's preparing for the end. And when it slows down, even the smallest invaders become massive threats. A bruise can bloom into a sore that won't go away. A sniffle becomes a weeks-long illness. And what's worse, the usual treatments stop working. Antibiotics that once knocked things out in 2 days now barely make a dent. I knew a woman named Louise who said, he was so tired, even fighting off a cold became a battle he didn't have the energy for. That's the level we're talking about. And then there's the mental fog that creeps in with these infections. Not always a fever, not always a cough, but a sudden confusion. Grandma seems fine in the morning, but by dinner she's dazed and detached. That's often the first clue an infection is brewing. It's sneaky like that. But families, hopeful as we are, often think, she'll bounce back like always. Only this time, she doesn't. Because now her body's less about recovery and more about comfort. And this tug of war between fighting and surrender is heartbreaking, especially when it's followed by the next sign, one you can see and hear with every breath. It started with something small. Grandpa Joe began breathing a little heavier after climbing the stairs. Just out of shape, he'd laugh, waving it off. But then it wasn't just the stairs. It was getting up from a chair, talking on the phone, even brushing his teeth. His breathing would go from steady to short, and sometimes he'd just stop mid-sentence to catch his breath. His wife noticed his hands were colder than usual. His nose, too. "Must be the weather," she said. But deep down, something didn't sit right. It wasn't just the cold, it was the color. Pale, bluish, fading. What most don't know is that the body starts redirecting blood flow to essential organs near the end. That means fingers, toes, ears, those get left behind. Circulation slows, the heart struggles, And suddenly those shallow breaths and icy hands become more than just quirks of aging. There's even a name for the breath pattern many don't recognize: Cheney-Stokes. Deep, rapid breaths followed by long pauses. It's eerie, unsettling even. Like the body is dancing between rhythms of holding on and letting go. I've had people tell me, "We thought she was sleeping, but it felt different." And it was. Sometimes loved ones panic, rightfully so. "Breathe deeper, Grandpa," they say, rubbing his back, trying to help. But here's the truth. The body isn't malfunctioning. It's transitioning. Trying to stay calm is tough, but it's exactly what they need. A quiet room, cool air, gentle sips of water, maybe oxygen, if it brings ease. Because comfort becomes the new goal, not correction, not cure. And when this breathing shift becomes consistent, it's often the moment when families start to see the truth and begin preparing their hearts, especially when paired with what comes next: a change in how they connect, speak, and simply show up. Margaret was the kind of woman who always had something to say. Whether it was a family dinner or a random chat with the cashier, she lit up every room with her words. But recently, silence. Her daughter noticed it first. "Mom's quieter lately," she said. At first, they thought she was tired. Then came the pauses in conversation, the wandering thoughts, the "what was I saying again" moments. The spark was dimming, not gone, but fading. And when she did speak, her words sometimes trailed off, as if she was mid-thought in a place no one else could reach. Communication, you see, is one of the last bridges between us and our loved ones. When that bridge starts to crumble, it hurts in ways that can't be fixed with medicine. They might forget a punchline, repeat the same story 5 times, or just sit quietly with a blank stare, not because they don't care, but because forming thoughts takes effort, and effort is running on empty. I remember a man telling me, "It's like my dad is still in the room, but only halfway here." Sometimes they lash out. Other times they don't react at all. That's not rejection. It's exhaustion, cognitive fog, and emotional depletion rolled into one. And what really gets you? It's not just the quiet. It's the shift. The person who once laughed loud now barely smiles. The grandma who lit up at every visit now stares out the window. But it's not because she doesn't feel. It's that the feelings are too hard to process, too heavy to carry. The noise of the world becomes too much, so they turn it down. They speak less, respond slower, and sometimes disappear into themselves. It's painful, yes, but it's also a signal. A deep one. And if you're paying close attention, you'll notice something else shifting quietly in the background, something that doesn't just affect their voice, but their very rhythm of life. You remember Arthur, right? The early riser who brewed coffee before the birds even started chirping. For decades, that man was up and moving before anyone else. But then something shifted. First, he started sleeping in. Then came the midday naps. Eventually, it got to where he'd sleep through breakfast and lunch, only stirring for a few minutes before drifting off again. His grandson joked, "Grandpa's hibernating." But behind the laughs, his daughter's eyes told a different story. She knew. She saw it. And what she saw was her father's energy slowly slipping away. It's one of the most overlooked signs, the need for rest growing deeper by the day. This isn't laziness, it's not boredom, it's biology. The body's internal battery is running low, and sleep becomes a sanctuary, a retreat. I once spoke with a caregiver who said, "He sleeps so much now. Is that normal?" Yes. Not only is it normal, it's a message. The body is conserving what little fuel it has left. Long naps, early bedtimes, less interaction. It's the rhythm of a system slowing down. You don't need a doctor to see it. You just need to look, listen, and feel the quiet settling in. And there's something hauntingly beautiful about it too. In those still hours, time seems to pause. The world softens. Families gather closer. And the rush of everyday life gives way to whispers, hand-holding, and presence. That presence means more than any cure. Because what's happening isn't a breakdown, it's a transition. And if you're paying attention, you'll notice that this final sign, The increase in sleep isn't an end, but a signal, a gentle reminder that life in its most sacred form is about to offer its last embrace. And it's in that sacred space that we often find our deepest moments of clarity, love, and legacy. Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones we don't want to see, but also the ones we need the most. If this video helped you understand even just one of those signs a little better, or if it reminded you of someone you love, take a moment right now to hit that like button. It may seem small, but it helps us reach more people who need to hear this message. And hey, I'd really love to hear from you. What sign resonated with you the most? Or maybe you've experienced something similar with a loved one. Drop your thoughts in the comments. You never know who you might be helping just by sharing your story. If you want to keep learning, healing, and growing through these important moments in life, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. We're building a space here where awareness and compassion come first, and you're a part of that. And before you go, don't miss the next video we've prepared for you. It's linked in the description below and right here on screen. Trust me, it dives even deeper and could bring you the clarity you didn't even know you needed.